This video exposes the uncomfortable truth about New Year motivation. Why most men feel fired up in January and completely collapse by February, and how motivation is sold as a lie to keep men weak, distracted, and dependent on external hype. The purpose of this video is to strip away fantasy thinking and replace it with a system that actually builds discipline, momentum, and masculine power. If you are tired of restarting every year and want real progress instead of temporary excitement, this is for you. Subscribe to the channel if you want honest guidance, strength-focused thinking, and principles that actually work in the real world. New Year motivation feels explosive because contrast creates emotion. You look back at the last year and the gap between who you were and who you wanted to be creates pain. Pain mixed with relief, regret mixed with hope. Your brain loves contrast because it makes everything feel dramatic and urgent. Wasted time suddenly becomes visible. Bad habits feel heavier. Missed opportunities scream louder. And at the same time, the calendar flips and gives you the illusion of a clean slate. No consequences, no carryover, just a fresh start fantasy. This emotional cocktail hits hard. It feels like power, like awakening, like clarity, but it is not change. It is chemistry, dopamine and adrenaline flooding your system because your identity feels threatened and your ego wants redemption. The brain then makes a fatal mistake. It confuses emotion with action. Feeling driven feels similar to being disciplined. Imagining the future feels similar to building it. Intensity feels similar to progress, but intensity burns fast, emotion spikes and crashes, motivation has no loyalty, it shows up loud and leaves silently. Men who do not understand this mistake. Excitement for execution. They write plans they will not follow. They promise transformations they will not sustain. They think feeling fired up means they are already different. That is the first trap. Real progress is boring, quiet, repetitive. It does not feel cinematic. It does not care about dates or celebrations. Strong men understand this early. Weak men chase the high of motivation every January and wonder why nothing changes by February. The motivation industry does not exist to make men disciplined. It exists to keep men emotionally stimulated. Most motivation content is engineered to excite, not to build. Loud music, fast cuts, aggressive quotes, dramatic speeches. Everything is designed to create a temporary spike of emotion that feels like power, but requires no sacrifice, no consistency, no identity change. It turns progress into entertainment. Men sit there watching another man talk about greatness while doing nothing themselves. Consumption replaces execution. Scrolling replaces training. Listening replaces building. And the brain feels rewarded simply for exposure. If motivation actually worked, you would not need it every year. You would not be searching for a new speech every January or another quote every Monday. The fact that men keep coming back proves it fails. Real progress is boring, repetitive and quiet. It looks like showing up when no one is watching, doing the same hard things again without applause, improving by small unsexy margins, but that does not sell. Boredom does not go viral, silence does not get views, so the industry feeds men fantasy instead of structure, hype instead of systems, hope instead of habits, and here is the brutal truth. The industry survives on men failing and restarting. Every broken promise is a returning customer, every relapse is another view, another click, another product. Strong men eventually unplug, they stop chasing emotional highs and start building standards. Weak men stay addicted to inspiration and call it self-improvement. Most men quit by February because motivation fades while life stays exactly the same. The calendar changes but reality does not. Cold mornings still exist, alarms still ring early, the bed is still warm, the gym is still uncomfortable, work pressure does not disappear, bills still arrive, stress still hits, time is still limited. Nothing about life gets easier just because you felt inspired on January 1st. And this is where the illusion collapses. Discipline was never built, only excitement. There was no system, no structure, no non-negotiables, just emotion carrying the load. And emotion is weak. When emotion drops, weak systems collapse instantly. Routines vanish. Promises get renegotiated. Excuses sound logical again. Men realize they were never committed. They were entertained. Motivation was doing all the work, and now it is gone. Strong men expect this phase. They plan for resistance, boredom, fatigue, and pressure. Weak men expect life to cooperate. When it does not, they label it burnout or loss of motivation. The truth is simple. February exposes what January was hiding. Standards survive stress, excitement does not, and that is why most men quit, right when results were supposed to begin. Most men do not want success when January comes around. They want relief from guilt, guilt from wasted time, from knowing they could have done more, from watching others progress while they stayed the same. The new year feels like a moral reset button, a psychological confession booth where you feel cleansed without paying the price. January feels like forgiveness without effort. You tell yourself this year will be different, and the guilt softens, pressure lifts. Self-respect feels temporarily restored, but nothing was earned, and unearned relief never lasts. The moment action stops, guilt comes back heavier than before, louder, sharper, because now you know better. This cycle repeats every year. Guilt builds. January promises relief. February exposes reality. Strong men break this loop. They do not seek relief. They seek control. Control over their body, their time, their reactions, their standards. Control does not feel comforting at first. It feels strict and demanding, but it kills guilt permanently, because guilt only exists where self-betrayal lives, and men who keep their word to themselves do not need fresh starts. They operate every day like it matters. Motivation asks a weak question. What do I feel like doing right now? It puts mood in charge, energy in control. Emotion is the decision maker, and emotion is unreliable. It changes with sleep, weather, stress, and comfort. Identity asks a harder question. Who am I regardless of mood? Who am I when I am tired, bored, frustrated, or unseen? Weak men act when they feel inspired, when music hits right, when confidence is high, when conditions feel perfect. Strong men act because it is who they are. Not because it feels good, but because it feels correct. Identity-based action removes negotiation. There is no debate in the mind, no internal argument, no waiting for the right feeling. The action is automatic because it is tied to self-image. A man who sees himself as disciplined trains even when he hates it. A man who sees himself as focused works even when distracted. Identity-based action does not need hype. It does not need speeches or quotes or countdowns. It needs repetition until behavior becomes non-negotiable. Motivation fades, identity remains. And men who build identity stop starting over because there is nothing to restart. They are already operating at standard. Goals fail because they live in the future. They are promises you make to a version of yourself that does not exist yet. They sound impressive: lose weight, make money, get disciplined, but they demand nothing today. Goals can always be postponed. Tomorrow becomes next week becomes next month, and the mind feels safe delaying, because the target is still technically alive. Standards are different. Standards are present rules. They govern behavior right now, not later. A standard says I train today regardless. I work before I relax. I do not negotiate with comfort. Standards are enforced daily. There is no finish line where you relax and fall apart. There is only maintenance and repetition. Men who live on goals live in fantasy. Men who live on standards live in reality. Wishes feel good, but rules create results. Men who win do not hope, they become disciplined. They decide what they tolerate and what they do not, and they execute accordingly every single day. Consistency is not about willpower, and never was. Willpower is fragile and burns out fast, especially in men who think discipline means fighting themselves every day. Real consistency comes from removing decisions, not winning internal battles. Every extra choice drains energy. Every morning negotiation weakens resolve. Strong men eliminate that noise. Same wake-up time no matter the mood. Same training schedule no matter the weather. Same work blocks no matter the energy level. Routine becomes the backbone, not motivation. Decision fatigue is what kills motivation systems. By the end of the day, men are mentally exhausted from choosing what to eat, when to work, when to train, whether to scroll or focus. And once the brain is tired, discipline collapses. Structure solves this. When the schedule is fixed, there is nothing to debate. The body moves before the mind complains. Consistency looks boring from the outside, but it is deadly effective. Men who rely on willpower eventually break. Men who rely on systems operate even on their worst days. And that is the real advantage, not intensity, but inevitability. Discipline feels empty at first, because it does not reward you emotionally in the beginning. There is no rush, no applause, no instant confidence boost. You wake up early, train, work, and repeat, and it feels flat, almost pointless. And that silence is exactly where weak men quit. They expect discipline to feel empowering immediately. They want proof they are changing, validation that it is working. But power is built before it is felt. Strength accumulates quietly under the surface, long before it shows. Respect comes after repetition, not after intention. The body adapts slowly, the mind follows even slower. Men who do not understand this interpret emptiness as failure. They assume nothing is happening and abandon the process. Strong men know better. They trust the lag. They understand that consistency compounds invisibly, and by the time others notice it, feels sudden, but it was earned. Men who grasp this stay ahead because they are willing to work without emotional payment, and that patience separates builders from quitters. Strong men do not use the new year to change everything. They do not burn their lives down and start role-playing a new identity. They already know what works because they have been paying attention. January is not about reinvention. It is about tightening the screws. They refine routines that already produce results. They reduce chaos instead of adding complexity. Fewer habits, fewer commitments, fewer distractions. They eliminate excuses by removing friction. Alarms get set earlier, calendars get blocked, temptations get controlled, systems get sharper, not louder. Weak men chase dramatic overhauls and collapse under their own ambition. Strong men make small, brutal adjustments that stack. January becomes a month of precision, not emotion, execution, not speeches, refinement, not fantasy, and that is why their progress does not spike and crash. It simply continues while everyone else resets again next year. Stop asking how to feel motivated, because motivation is a liar. It comes and goes without warning. It depends on sleep, mood, weather, luck, and the fleeting chemicals in your brain. Start asking what must be done today, what is non-negotiable, what action aligns with who you are. Strong men operate on duty, not desire. Emotion follows action, not the other way around. You do not wait for the fire to appear. You ignite it by moving first, by training when tired, working when bored, learning when distracted. This frame removes excuses permanently, because there is no debate in the mind. The question is no longer can I or should I. It is already decided. You act because you are that man. This mindset makes setbacks irrelevant, failure temporary, laziness impossible to sustain. Once you see this, you cannot unsee it. It becomes a lens for every day, every decision, every challenge. You cannot go back to relying on feelings, because you now know the truth. Action builds emotion, standards protect it, identity enforces it, and men who adopt this frame become unstoppable. They do not wait for inspiration, they do not chase hype, they simply move and the world bends around their momentum. New Year motivation is not your enemy, but believing it is enough will keep you average. If you want a different year, you need a different operating system, not another burst of emotion. Build standards, build systems, build identity. If this video helped you think clearly, subscribe to the channel. This channel exists to sharpen men, not entertain them.